Hello, welcome to the latest episode of Comics Unmasked. It is just me and Connor this week, as Andrew is preparing for a con, which he's travelling to tomorrow. So it's a bit late for him to hop in. I was going to say, hey, go to this Leeds, isn't it?
It is Leeds, yeah.
Yeah, go to this con in Leeds and support him. But by the time you see this, it'll be over. So if you're one of our viewers who happens to have the ability to travel in time, go and support him at this con. If not, maybe you saw him at the con and you found us somehow because you searched him on YouTube. Welcome. He's not here. We're going to disappoint you.
He's on some of the other ones.
He's at most of the other ones. But this episode, no.
No.
You're in for a treat. It is a good old-fashioned rambling episode.
We're good at those.
Yep, I think the last one will also have been a rambling episode.
You're releasing things out of order again?
No, the last episode, we didn't have a discussion topic for the last episode, did we?
Do you think I can remember what we talked about?
It was all three of us.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, the last episode that went up was the interview of you interviewing Andrew on his method. We've got one more episode, and then it'll be this episode. We're still ahead, but we're not as ahead as we were at the start.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I bought my first Dark Horse Library edition recently.
I have been eyeing some of those for a while. I have various ones that I'm like, they look really nice, and I just haven't quite bit the bullet on any of them yet.
They are, honest to God, slipcase aside, absolute quality.
It's absolute, for anyone listening, in terms of the DC absolute editions, not just they're absolute quality.
No, yeah, the absolute editions are a format that is starting to dry up now from DC. They still put the odd one out, but back in the day,
huge and expensive.
Marvel did omnibus, or I prefer the plural omnibuy.
Is that the plural of omnibus?
No, omnibus is the plural of omnibus, but I think omnibuy sounds better.
I agree. Let's go with it.
And DC did absolutes. Omnibuy collected a lot more, but absolutes were like, hey, this is the best possible way you could read this comic.
Yes, so omnibus are slightly bigger than a regular hardcover in terms of the size.
Yeah.
Like the page trim, not just the page count, but like the actual height and the width of the book. So your art is a little bit bigger than normal, but not massively, whereas the absolutes are pretty big.
Omnibus are about the same size as what would also be called a deluxe edition hardcover.
They're pretty much identical.
Yeah,
that,
but omnibus are a lot fatter because the problem is omnibuses have a sweet spot, and frequently now I think publishers go way over that sweet spot.
That's
over
true.
1,000 pages is too many pages.
Yeah,
it is. It might be good value for money, but
omnibus and deluxe are a little bit interchangeable in that, in theory, their format is identical. It is just the amount of pages.
Yeah, like for example, there is there's two Marvel books that strike me that are classed as omnibus. The Young Avengers one and the Vision one, and they collect both entirety.
Vision count as an omnibus?
It was released as the Vision omnibus, yeah.
Weird, because that's only 12 issues.
Yeah, and
the Young Avengers one, I think, is 24, 25.
Yeah, they're both relatively small, enough that you could call it either way, but they classed them both as and I guess maybe they use the omnibus notion because it's like, it's an entire run in here.
Yes. Young Avengers, I would say I could buy that as a short omnibus. It's on the small side,
but it is. Vision is definitely a deluxe edition.
Deluxe editions typically are 2 or 3 trades worth of material, so that's between 10 and 18 issues, give or take.
On a side note, do you know who has the worst value trades in the industry?
Boom.
4 fucking issues a trade.
Yeah, it's terrible. Just buy the single issues. Even if you're...
I've worked out maths.
Especially if you're a digital reader and you buy on Comixology, it is cheaper to buy the single issues, especially if you buy them on sale.
Yeah, or even not on sale, but with a natural price drop. hits.
It's because they drop a dollar after a couple of months, don't they?
Yeah, it's significantly cheaper to buy singles than it is trades from Boom.
They're terrible.
Even when they're on sale, because single issues drop to what 79p.
I said as there are definitely Boom books I like, but I cannot, in good conscience, recommend buying Boom trades.
Yeah, which means if you look way behind on something like Power Rangers or Buffy or catching up, it becomes this like, okay, well, I'm either buying issues that, unless the sale's on, issues at full price or really poor value trades.
Yeah. Yeah, they're terrible. It is interesting, the trade price structure, because Marvel and DC have slightly different approach as well.
Yes, they do.
Marvel are a lot more flexible on their trades. They're willing to do as low as 4 issues a trade, but they will drop the price accordingly.
Yeah, and trade digitally as well. Trades from Marvel are generally cheap, even when they're not on sale or anything like that.
Yeah, whereas DC, they tend to be a lot more strict with the 6 issues. It varies slightly, but as a rule, 6 issues a trade for
There's a
paperback.
price parity in that DC charges digitally what they would charge print, which is generally the same with digital comics across the board for the most part.
Yeah.
Give or take, and obviously sales and things. Marvel seem to have no rhyme or reason what they charge digitally for a trade. I've seen brand new Marvel digital trades go for as little as $5. It's really weird what they like. Sometimes
it is pretty unpredictable.
I've been like, a series has been about halfway through, so they've solicited for trade for it. Marvel pumps out trades at a much quicker rate than DC does as well. Usually,
I'm just going on Marvel.
If Marvel's releasing a 6-issue miniseries, the trade will be solicited before the series is finished, generally, and is usually only out about a month or so after the series finishes. But I've seen the price of a trade to pre-order, and it's been like, I didn't want to read that many, but I may as well just wait for the trade.
I'm just looking in the new from Marvel section to see kind of how much are they selling a trade for. On the two ends of the spectrum, I'll pick the cheapest one and the most expensive one. These are all from the past week or two because they're in the new section. Cheapest one is King in Black: Return of the Valkyries.
I was gonna say, give me the price for that one. Give me the price for the most expensive one and see if I can guess the line it's coming from.
Okay, so this is just a regular, event tie-in 4-issue mini, and this is £5.59, which I assume will be about $7.
Pretty good value.
Yeah, when you consider if you were to buy the single issues, it's telling me they're £1.59 at the minute, but I think that's had a price drop when they would have released.
Marvel, I think single issues of Marvel drop about 2 months after release. Maybe even as little as a month after release.
Interesting.
I think the thing is, they drop them because they're at that point they're arguably competing with their own subscription service, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah, they would be. Yeah.
Because Marvel's on a 3-month turnaround now for Marvel Unlimited.
Yeah, that's a good point. But this trade is actually out pretty quick when you consider the first issue of this series released in January of this
King
year.
in Black hasn't finished yet.
Yeah, January of this year, 4 issues. So issue 4, I don't know if this was a monthly or if it was twice monthly. So the final issue was 31st of March. We are now in the end of June, so reasonable turnaround.
Yeah.
But that's a 4-issue trade. Now on the other end of the scale, the book is £16.09.
That is at that price, I would say, and I could be completely wrong. I know they're reprinting some Masterworks, but I don't know if they'd go on digitally because they're just reprints of old. They've got new covers, so they're technically new books, but they are just reprints of old Masterworks. Or it might be an Epic collection at that price.
I'll say it's an Epic collection. The reprints of the Masterworks, I don't know if this is a reprint, but there is a Masterworks this week, and those are £13.69.
What Masterwork is it?
Uncanny X-Men 13.
Yeah, that was not for so they've decided to reprint the lines from Volume 1, and they give them all Michael Cho covers.
Oh, nice.
They're very nice covers as well.
I have some Michael Cho art hanging on my wall.
Yeah, so DC has a much more. DC basically releases a trade every 6 months, and partly is for the book. That's because they're spacing for the book market.
Yeah, doesn't flood them all at once.
Yeah, Marvel has a very much just flood the market with books.
Just pick up what you want as you can.
DC tries
if you want it, you'll buy it.
And I think it frustrates comics readers, but I think it probably works for them in the book market.
Yeah, when we're talking about every 6 months, we mean per one series. So
yeah.
Batman as a series, those trades only come out roughly every 6 months.
It makes sense. It gives you that thought of like, oh, I read the Batman books. Like if you were big, again, I grew up reading long-running urban fantasy series, right? I was a Dresden Files reader. It has that feeling of like, oh yeah, the new Batman's out.
Yeah. This wasn't so much of a problem just over 10, 15 years ago, where...
Again, this was the entire point of DC's very failed Earth 1 line.
It was, yes.
Which is still pumping out books.
Honestly, this kind of became a problem for DC with this staggered release system only around the time when they started the New 52, because every book started number one in the same month.
They did, it's worth pointing out, they launched this system with the New 52. They didn't do books this way quite before.
No, they kind of released them whenever.
Yeah, New 52 is when this idea of the 6-monthly.
And it was a bit of a problem for them at the time, at first, because you have all these books that start at the same time. They're all publishing at the exact same speed. All of them are going to be 6 issues a trade. You can't publish 52 books into the bookstore at once every 6 months. You have to stagger them. So you had some books that were, right, they were one issue behind the comics monthlies. And then on the other end of the scale, you had some that were like 12 issues behind.
Yeah.
And it was really awkward depending on which books you wanted to read.
It's also a case in point where potentially a complete line-wide reboot comes with its own issues.
Problems. Yeah.
Do you have a preferred format of collected edition?
Deluxe / anything kind of that. I like oversized art.
Yeah.
But I don't like having too many pages.
Deluxes I like. I'm a big fan of a big, thin hardback, like your Absolutes or your Dark Horse Library editions. I've just pre-ordered the...
Library editions are kind of similar to deluxes in that they tend to be about 2 trades worth of content, give or take.
Completely varies, I find, looking at
them.
Really?
Like,
I've just had a bonus from work this week, so I've ordered a few.
I told a complete lie. I do have a library edition.
Yeah, which one?
I have the Dragon Age library edition for the first volume.
Complete different, and you got the Buffy one there as well.
I do have a Buffy one there. That's season 8, I think.
They seem to have settled on at the start. I don't think there was a rhyme and reason to the size formats of the library editions.
No,
like the Hellboy ones
are, as you can see there,
quite different.
The Hellboy ones are the kind of faux leather, right?
Yeah.
That's what I think they've kind of settled into as the established format now.
No, they seem to have settled into a more of a
because from what I remember, it's been a while since I read this. This is a little bit different to a lot of the other library editions.
Yeah.
In that this is an annotated one.
Yeah, I think a lot of the BioWare comics are different.
So traditionally, this is an oversized book, obviously, as you can see, hopefully. Normally, this would fill the entire page, and it would be oversized art. However, as you can see, there's a big border around it on most, if not every page. And they have, annotations here, kind of, behind-the-scenes notes. It's a different approach. It's kind of nice.
Yeah.
I do like it. However, I really like oversized art as well. That's kind of something I really enjoy seeing, which is why I tend to go for deluxes for the most part. It's not a consistent truth, though. It varies. I will say I don't read that many paperbacks.
I just realised I've been wearing my works name badge for most of this. Non-uniform day at work today,
I was just saying, I don't read that many paperbacks as if I can avoid it, because they're just they're my least favourite format.
I would read digital. Is the thing with traditional trades for the most part. So this I just ordered. It is the Lady Killer Library Edition, and this is the size and format.
They're making a TV show of that soon as well.
Ooh,
so
nice.
That's going to rocket up in scarcity in the next year or two.
Seems to have started to slip out of print, which is why I got an order in on it.
I need to go and have a look.
It's in stock on Amazon quite fine, but I know it's Forbidden Planet don't have it even listed on there.
Let's go and have a look at Amazon.
Sign it's slipping. What I like about these library editions is that they are nearly absolute. Again, slipcase aside, they're up there with absolute editions in quality. But like the stitching, they have a little
ribbon bookmark,
but they're significantly cheaper than absolute editions.
Yeah, I was just saying that because they tend to be, from my experience of looking at them, in the £25 to £35 region.
Yeah, I just ordered the Madman one, which is a bit more because it's 700 odd pages because they're quite hefty ones. But yeah, look at that Joelle Jones art.
Yeah, I just may have added that to my basket. Yeah, like in comparison,
have you read Lady Killer before?
I haven't.
I've read the first volume. It's very good. I've not read the second.
The Black Hammer library editions vary from about £27.50. RRP is about £42, I believe. So they're on the more expensive end of library editions.
So
from what I can tell,
there's some library editions that are only six issues. The Killjoys
really, I've
ones,
not seen any.
Umbrella Academy ones, House of Penance.
I've also had some of their manga because obviously they have rights to some manga stuff.
Yeah.
Dark Horse do, and they reprint some of them in the library editions. So I
think
they have
again
like
a slightly different size format too.
Yes.
But it isn't as the library edition does not have quite as fixed of a format as say a DC Absolute does, which are they're all slipcased, same size as the book I just showed you, pretty much. But they all come with a slipcase, and again, an Absolute edition tends to be about 12 issues, give or take, depending on the series.
Yeah, because I was looking at the Blade of the Immortal deluxes, which is interesting because I believe they reprint it so you still read it left to right instead of right to left like you would with manga.
Yeah.
But they don't flip the art at the artist's request usually.
Huh? How?
I think they redo the panels, but they don't mirror it.
Oh, how?
Yeah,
odd.
It is strange. I could be wrong. But those are the faux leather.
Speaking of faux leather, I think some of the pinnacle of collected editions are DC's Sandman Absolutes.
Oh, are they that nice? I've always kind of looked at them and gone, oh no, I don't need those.
As I picked them up as they were coming out, and I have them all bar the fifth one and Overture, because that has its own separate one. So I've got the main series and I've got Death, but I don't have the volume that collects things like Endless Nights and Dream Hunters and things like that. But the core series was in 4 volumes. And nice oversized art, tons of back matter.
Yeah, they look gorgeous. Again, this is the thing with Absolutes, they are pricey.
Each one collects about, if it's four volumes, collects the 10 trades. That would be...
Yeah, the first one collects issues 1 to 20.
Yeah. It could be that the shorts are paced. It might be that, the single issue stories were collecting each of their own volumes, but I think they might have been a bit more spread around in the issues. Across the Absolutes, they may be paced where they actually were in the original publishing.
It's interesting because I'm looking in comparing the deluxes and the Absolutes.
Yeah.
Again, they're comparable in the sense that they are both premium formats.
The deluxes seem to be mirroring the Absolutes.
Not quite though, because Absolute Volume 1 is 1 to 20 and back matter. Whereas the deluxe is 1 to 16 and then Sandman Mystery Theater 1.
Which is the first time that's been collected, I think.
Is it?
In any of these Sandman projects, yeah.
See, that's interesting. And I'm looking at and the price difference is substantial. The RRP, the deluxe is half the price of the absolute.
Oh yeah.
Now, the absolute is objectively the superior product. But I would probably still end up, in terms of the value for what I'm getting,
Yeah.
probably I would end up going for the deluxes.
And the deluxe would be an easier read.
Yeah.
Because, it's a manageable size. You're not reading the absolute in your lap.
Not without having something to prop it up on, like a table
No.
to lean it against while you do.
And the
I'm just looking and just seeing like how weird some of the deluxe editions are that aren't quite omnibus
well,
that I've got over there.
Sandman is also available in the omnibus format. 2 hefty omnibuses, Sandman, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. DC make bad omnibuses. Or they make significantly worse omnibuses than Marvel do. Or
I think they don't anymore.
No?
No. They have significantly improved.
I may have just some bad experiences with early.
I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago they were
My
atrocious.
JSA Volume 1 is in pieces. I haven't even...
They used to still be like glued bindings,
yeah,
right?
and the JSA books are massive.
Yeah, no. They tend to be a little bit shorter now. Not exclusively, but tend to. But more importantly, they've switched over to sewn bindings.
Omnibus should have always been a sewn binding, is the thing.
Yeah, it should have been. There's no excusing the terrible quality of their earlier ones, but they are better now. Like,
that's good.
If there's a new release or a new printing coming out of an omnibus, I can safely say, yes, this is probably reasonable enough quality now that I can recommend it.
The library editions from Dark Horse are a sewn binding. And look at, around halfway through, how nice that bend is in the... That looks nice and stable.
This Dragon Age one's a bit of an older one now. But again, that's about halfway.
Yeah.
It's pretty just flat. Like, it is really... I'm not even holding that open. That's just on its own.
The problem is, even with sewn binding, these are nice, manageable sized books. One of the problems you get with omnibuses, especially when you're going over that 1,000 page mark, they just put so much pressure on that binding.
What's my biggest omnibus? It's probably the Gotham Central, which is, I think, about 40 odd issues.
There's a way to open an omnibus when you get it for the first time.
Oh, that's where my Jen Bartel bookmark is.
The thing to do is open it at pretty much the centre bit, lay it flat when you first get an omnibus, and then slowly turn pages from kind of...
See, this is actually shocking. That's about halfway.
That's not bad.
That's a sewn binding. It stays really open and readable. This is the official page count. I don't know, but if I just go to the back and see what the last listed page is, because some of them have numbers on the bottom. Not all of them do. Not every page does. This is just under 1,000 pages. Which is a pretty reasonable, hefty-sized omnibus. And not extreme.
For me, that's really...
the upper limit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, you do get some that are like up to like 1,400 pages.
They're a great way to collect stuff.
They are. Yeah.
But again, they're not the most pleasant of reads. I think for me, I very much like my 11. Again, coming away from collected editions for a moment, I very much like my 11-inch iPad for reading comics on. It's a little bit bigger than the comic page. I imagine reading comics on, because I know Andrew's got his, I think he went for the 12-inch, 12.9-inch iPad. And I imagine reading comics on that is very nice.
I tend to read digital comics, weirdly, on my desktop. Maybe. I have a 32-inch monitor.
Yeah.
And Sometimes I'll single page them. Sometimes I'll set them up to dual page, so it's like just turning, like a comic where it's 2 pages at once.
Yeah, with a vertical monitor, that makes.
I've done that because I have both. I've read on a vertical monitor and I read on a horizontal monitor. Like, I mean, let me just.
I've read comics on a computer, especially when I was younger.
It's still like bigger than, like taller than even these library editions, comfortably.
I just read comfortably lying down in bed. That's why.
I have a 10-inch Amazon Fire.
Yeah.
The HD10. That I do read comics on it when I'm not at the PC. It's a pretty pleasant experience still. Like high quality enough screen that it's clear, sharp, bright. Just what you want really.
Yeah.
And big enough that I don't feel like I'm lacking anything. But I will say the problem with some digital comics, especially on a tablet, is landscape. When you've got like double page spreads, I often find them just a little bit on the cramped side.
See, I don't on mine. I flip it, but then it's also very. I again can't speak. I've only ever really been an iPad user, but the transition in terms to rotation and waiting for it is instantaneous, pretty much. So.
That's not my problem. It's not the wait. Mine's quick enough.
Yeah.
It is more just the amount of like the screen real estate just feels slightly cramped for splashes.
But I do read most of my comics digitally these days more than anything. Seems like
probably read about 2/3 of my comics digitally.
I've swung back on physical film age as well. I shifted to 4K discs, and I've shifted back to 4K iTunes again for a while, just because sometimes like you stop and contemplate the price in between the two, and it's the new Indiana Jones box set is £80 or 20. Like, and I don't think there's £60 worth of visual fidelity between.
I think for the most part, this holds true for both comics and digital, because as a rule, you can pick up digital comics cheaper. Not at launch, not on day one. It'll be comparable. If anything, you might get it slightly cheaper if you go to like Amazon or something and get discount. But they will go on sale. They will be cheaper.
Yeah.
What you're paying for is not the experience, because the experience is comparable, again, assuming you got a decent screen, especially with films. Like you're playing it on probably the same devices. The difference comes down to, do you want to collect it? Do you want it to be something on a shelf? Do you want it to be something to look around me? Do you want it to be something like that, or do you just want to experience it and and read it or
you do have the ownership argument as well, don't you?
Yes.
Now, if Comixology ever went kaput, I would lose so much money.
Yeah, the only good side to this is that Comixology is owned by Amazon, and it's presumably at least profitable. If it doesn't make like the biggest profits ever, it's enough for them to just leave it as it is, keep it running.
I mean, they haven't made any improvements to it in years. It is just something that
barely
they've
touched
left
it.
Outside. But then they also cared enough to start and launch Comixology Originals as a thing.
Try and get into the publishing game a little bit.
Yeah, and it seems to be proving not unsuccessful.
Well, they've done more than one wave of it, so it can't have gone that badly.
They come out relatively regularly as single issues first before trades.
Yeah.
Which, if you are like, oh man, I want to try those Comixology Originals, and you are like, don't. Here's a tip: if you have an Amazon Prime account, don't buy them on Comixology. You can read them free. Just go and purchase them on Amazon at the zero price because you've got Prime, and they will appear in your Comixology library.
Bizarre.
If you have Prime, Kindle Unlimited, or if you're in America, Comixology Unlimited, all Comixology Originals are included in any three of those subscription packages.
It's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew they were in Comixology Unlimited. And I assumed Kindle Unlimited, but I didn't realize they were in just the regular Prime reading.
Yeah, they're in Prime reading, so you can just I assume you've got Prime, you can just read them.
I do. I don't think I'd live without Prime. I'm too used to just.
Yeah, I feel bad for it, but yeah. I had this conversation with Matt on one of the other shows the other day about how I pleaded with people like, hey guys, don't shop on Amazon. And then it ended with like, oh, next week we're reviewing Mystery Men, which is available to watch on Amazon Prime Video.
It's one of those things where objectively Amazon are kind of terrible. I kind of hate what they are.
I do my best to shop elsewhere, but I still...
Convenience and price mean that I do end up going to Amazon a lot.
Yeah.
As much as I hate it.
But no ethical consumption under capitalism.
No. But just that, I'm on Amazon now, as soon as I added the Lady Killers to my basket. And I was just looking at some other omnibuses just to see the horrific size of some of them.
Forbidden Planet has got good at... If you're wanting to say shop at a comic store, but you want in Amazon savings...
Are they that good?
Forbidden Planet is usually relatively on par. That said, you pay postage on Forbidden Planet. But if you are batch ordering, and omnibuses are all that... So Amazon... Forbidden Planet has a rule of £5.50 is the most they will ever charge you for postage. And all omnibuses are instantly at that.
I'm not surprised.
Price bracket.
It costs them more than that just to post them.
A single issue, for example, is £1 postage, and the more things you add in, the closer you get to that $5.50.
I'm assuming there's a weight limit that they work out.
They don't charge you at order; they charge you when they dispatch. Postage gets charged on the first thing they dispatch, so the $5.50 gets charged on that initial. So, say you order 6 omnibuses at £40 a pop. That first one, you'd be charged when it releases at $45.50, but then the rest of them would just be charged at their price when they come out. So the $5.50 isn't bad if you're batch pre-ordering a bunch of stuff you want. And Forbidden Planet is also, it's a chain, it's a big-ish company, but if you want to put your money at a local comic shop more than Amazon, Forbidden Planet is
compared to Amazon is
and this is forbiddenplanet.com I'm talking about.
Yes.
Although the other one doesn't have an online store anymore.
Oh, they got rid of it, didn't they?
Yeah.
Just and while we're on Forbidden Planet, which is kind of the exclusive to any UK listeners at this point here, this section of the conversation.
One in New York, and they do ship internationally.
Oh, do they? Okay. I imagine there are cheaper ways of shipping, of getting your comics if you're in the US, though. But when if you batch pre-order, like let's say I pre-ordered 5 omnibuses, can I cancel them individually, or do I have to cancel the whole lot? You can, okay.
You can cancel individually, yeah.
That's good, because some places don't let you do that. You have to cancel the entire order.
Yeah, you can cancel individually. Speaking of online stores, I know, completely off topic from comics, I noticed Zavvi no longer run the Nintendo UK store.
Do they not?
No. It seems to have come in-house under Nintendo now.
Huh.
Zavvi is a weird UK DVD / merchandise / is a weird UK online shop.
Yeah.
I mean,
they'll do a lot of, like,
do you want
DVDs, Blu-rays,
T-shirts, protein shakes, the lot.
Pop Funkos, Lego.
But and there's a lot of shops that are owned by online stores that are owned by the same company, and you can always tell because they use it's the Hut Group, isn't it? You can always tell because they use the same menu system and layout, and your parcels always arrive in big protein shake boxes.
Yep, and they'll always have like a little advert for one of the other things, and
often
when you try and buy something from it, it'll redirect you to their cashback site afterwards.
For years, they have run Nintendo's UK store, which meant you'd order official Nintendo products, and it still arrived boxed in a protein shake.
It's an interesting site, Zavvi, because some stuff is just horrible value,
and occasionally they just have crazy, insane deals on.
Those, I don't even see them on the camera. The bombshell statues that I've got up there. Those were probably a fifth of retail price.
Yeah, I've got some statues from there. Like,
and they're perfectly fine. Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong. They've come completely brand new boxed.
Like,
I've got
a few of my friends pitched in for my birthday one year and got me the Gotham City, the motorbike line.
Oh yeah, the garage.
Yeah, the Gotham City garage. Yeah, the Harley Quinn one.
Yeah.
Which was on Zavvi at a ludicrously low, not necessarily cheap, but compared to how much
compared
it
to
retailed
retail.
at, I think it was like 50 as opposed to 300. Like, yeah, Zavvi is a very weird shop, and occasionally, if you notice in the bottom corner of Connor's screen, you will see a unique form of collected edition for the UK. What we call Partworks magazines.
Ah, yes, those are the Eagle Moss editions.
Yes, is it Hatchwork that do the Marvel ones? Hatchet that do the Marvel
ones? I think so. Yeah.
Zavvi also somehow get a load of them in individually and sell them.
I've also there's like different ones as well. There's an ID like the there's a Star Trek one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of various Star Trek comics. They're very interesting collections.
Zavvi is, if you, again, this only really works for UK listeners and UK listeners probably know what Zavvi is anyhow. But markets. Zavvi is the found on the back of a van and selling out the market of online retailers.
But they're not knockoffs like a lot of markets are.
No, they just basically, I think, bulk bought a load of cheap products from places.
And then every so often, stuff's going to go out. They'll need stock for their warehouse.
Yeah.
So they'll just like, right, let's just sling it off as cheap as possible.
Occasionally you get omnibuses on there at cheap prices as well.
Yeah, it's one of those sites where you just tend to keep an eye on. Like, I saw I'm struggling to find now, but they had some of the Batman black and white statues at pretty good prices.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, okay, tempting.
Like, it's always worth. And then sometimes you have statues just at the full price that they probably should sell at, and you're like, okay. And you wonder if they put it on there just so they can dash the price of it down the line.
Like, just for context here, I'm just looking comparing. They've got the Bombshells Batgirl Halloween, RRP 125. They're selling for 114, which is barely any savings.
Yeah.
They have the John Romita Jr. Batman Black and White, retails at 80. They're selling for 50, which is not a terrible price for those.
I've also seen black and white statues go for like 20 on there.
Yeah.
I've got the Paul Dini Harley Quinn that I got for about 20 quid off of... Oh, no.
They do sometimes go
I think the Paul Dini Harley Quinn might have been a present, actually. I got the Lois Lane Bombshells rather cheap off there, though.
Yeah, I didn't have any money at the time, and I was good. Because I was like, I would have liked that.
Yeah, Zavvi, it's a weird shop.
Yeah.
And tangentially comic related, even if I got there from Nintendo.
It is, but they have a lot of comics merchandise. Like a lot.
Yeah, they do.
Including actual comics.
Yeah.
But I was looking on Amazon, like omnibuses, we're talking about the upper limits for us are about 1,000 pages, give or take.
Yeah.
They've got the Green Arrow by Mike Grell. I believe in kind of 2 parts, although the second one is the Longbow. I think they've renamed it as the Longbow Hunters Saga Omnibus Volume 2.
Oh. But Longbow Hunters is like one trade's worth.
Yeah. But it is because Volume 1...
It was a mini first, wasn't it? And then it
was. You had a 3-issue mini and then the run.
And notoriously, like... The time period that was coming out in...
Yep.
The only reason that probably wasn't a Vertigo book is it was Green Arrow. Like,
yeah.
I reckon there is a slight alternative universe where that got branded the same as Hellblazer, Swamp Thing, and Sandman. And
Quite
Green
possibly.
Arrow became a Vertigo character instead of the mainline DC character.
Yeah. But those are huge books. The first one is 1,500 pages. The second one is 1,400.
It's too big.
Yeah, that's 3,000... Just under 3,000 pages for 2 omnibuses there. Split into 3.
I guess they make a good weapon to keep in your house if you get robbed.
I've always said some of these omnibuses are big enough you could kill a horse with them.
Yeah.
Don't know why you would, but I'm just like just as a point of that's how big they are. But like just split into 3,000 pages there at that point, which is kind of more or less what they did with the Batman by Grant Morrison's. I think are about they're considerably shorter.
They're nicely paced, and 4 makes sense.
Only 3.
Do you not have 4 right there?
No.
Behind you on the other shelf?
That's just the dust jacket.
Oh.
That's the dust jacket for the second one that I'm reading at the minute because I don't like having the dust jackets get in the way while I'm reading
as well.
They irritate me.
So what is it? Batman and Robin.
Second one starts with Batman and Robin, I believe, and Return of Bruce Wayne, and then a couple of issues of Batman, like 700 to 702.
Yeah, because they were smack bang in the middle of Batman and Robin. They're part of the Return.
And then
they basically flash back to his death, don't they?
Yeah, and then 3 is basically Batman Inc. Both volumes, all of that, and like the return.
That's a one New 52 killed.
Yeah,
it just doesn't have the, and because of how quickly they put Damian back as well.
Yeah, but those
spoilers
3...
for Grant Morrison's Batman, I suppose.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those 3 are 650 to 750 pages each, and they are very comfortable reading.
I do adore that one though. Like,
it is a wonderful run.
Yeah.
But again, nicely sized omnibuses like that. That's something they could have forced that into 2 if they'd wanted to. It would be a weirder splitting, but
what always gets me is like
page count wise,
at the time, there was a bit of people weren't so happy with Batman's death. It's like, oh, it's just gonna be like any other comic death. He's just got to come back. It's like, yes, but not even like Morrison hasn't even pretended otherwise. It's been telegraphed from like, he didn't even die. Like, it wasn't even a death. We knew from the point it happened he was zapped back in time. Final Crisis ended with a picture of Batman.
I was going to say that there might have been like a couple of issues where it teased that maybe he was dead at most, but not much.
But again, in theory, and again, obviously, it's dependent on how much of a lore you know. But in theory, we knew that the Omega anti-life whatnot potentially sent people back in time more than it actually
just killed them.
Yeah, like it.
Weeping Angel them.
Yeah, it was never meant to be like he's dead. Now it's the next step. It was always a case of like him coming back was part and parcel of the story.
Yeah. I don't know wrong. I still think it was a mistake making him Batman again. Once we got to that stage, but that wasn't really Morrison's fault.
I don't think it inherently was a mistake making him Batman. If Batman Inc. was what Batman Inc. was meant to be. Right?
Sure.
And a group of Batmen. Like, if it was a case of like, it was almost pushing Bruce further into Batman Beyond Old Man Bruce role. Like, Batman was going to be, or so Bruce would have been the Justice League's Batman. He would have been the Batman who Batmaned the world. Dick would have stayed Gotham's Batman, which is how it started. This is what it.
And when I say they shouldn't have made him Batman again, I basically mean they should have made him the only Batman again. They shouldn't have taken away Dick. This is kind of what I'm getting at here.
New 52 was a reset. If New 52 hadn't happened, Dick would have stayed Batman, I think, for a decent
at least another few
time.
years.
Yeah, like
which
that status quo of what Batman Inc. was setting up, and
it's one of those things where I love Dick Grayson. I love Nightwing.
Yeah, like
I adore Nightwing.
I love some of the other Batman they set up as well. Like, I mean, Knight and Squire they didn't set up. That was Knight and Squire was something Morrison pulled from the latter years. But I
had all of it.
I love Knight and Squire.
So good.
They showed up again recently somewhere, didn't they?
It's
Knight in
Tom Taylor's new,
it's and isn't Squire still Knight? As in Beverly
who was
Squire.
Who was Squire in the Morrison run?
Squire
is
2
Knight.
Is now Knight.
Yes, and she's
Knight
got a new
was
Squire.
Originally a Squire.
Yes, and she's got a new Squire.
Okay, I like that. I like that is
continued.
Yeah.
No, and it's
Night Runner,
like this
showing
weird
up soon.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, Night Runner was a cool character. Oh no, Night Runner was one of the options in that.
Yes, which means it's going to show up soon.
Yes, it didn't win, but it's going to.
All of those books are showing up at some point in the next year.
Even if they're straight to Infinite as an Infinite selling point.
Yeah, or digital first.
Interestingly, about Infinite, DC have stopped the DC Comics app that uses Comixology.
Yes, they've just transferred all the purchases over directly to Comixology. Just use Comixology, you idiots. Is basically their message.
But them shutting the app, I think, is also a sign that Infinite is.
They want the DC app to be Infinite, not. We don't want a DC app and then a DC Infinite app, which I get. And also, powered by Comixology, it makes no difference to them. Comixology is still getting their cut, even if you buy it through the DC app. Comixology still get their cut for hosting it all and providing the service.
Yeah, it's a Comixology app just for DC Comics. Oh man, do you remember the days when Dark Horse wasn't on Comixology? And they had a terrible app you had to use, but you can still
unusable.
Choose to use.
It was unusable.
It was atrocious.
There's
a period of time where I just wasn't reading Dark Horse because it's like, nah, I'm not using that app. It's awful.
Same. For years.
And this was before Amazon owned Comixology, so you didn't even have the whole, Dark Horse are just sticking it to evil Amazon kind of.
No, this was back when Amazon had their own comics reader, which was pretty rough as well. Wasn't quite as bad as the Dark Horse one. Which I think it's still technically around their reader, but I don't know why you'd use it when you just import all your purchases to Comixology and use their reader, which I still think is the best.
Yeah,
out of all the ones that we like. I love DC Infinite, Marvel Unlimited.
I've not had the chance to use DC Infinite as an app experience yet.
I have. There are features in the reader that I find missing.
Yeah.
Things like the when you do the landscape mode and splash pages.
Yeah.
Comixology has an option to do you want it to fit your height, fit width?
Yeah.
Right. And fit width is a little bit annoying at least on my tablet, because it means that there's an inch that I have to scroll to see the bottom of the page.
Yeah, I don't have that. Oh, you know about DC or Comixology?
Comixology. Just if you use the fit width option.
Yeah.
Instead of fit height.
I'm not sure what I use actually. It basically fills fit all, maybe. Page.
I don't know exactly what the options are by now because I haven't touched them in so long. But DC does not have an option for me to switch, in that I have to scroll just like on a landscape page. There's just a little bit at the bottom, about an inch or so, where I'm like, nope, I need to scroll to see that, and it's just irritating.
The most frustrating thing for me about the Marvel Unlimited app is just sometimes it says, nah, I'm not working.
Yeah.
When it works, it's fine. It's just occasionally just like, nope, not today.
They're pretty terrible for offline downloads as well. Like if you want to, if you're going away and you've got no internet for a week or whatever,
you get 12 books.
Yeah, 12 single issues.
Yeah,
that's nothing.
Not much, no.
It's pretty poor in that regard. I think DC even lets you have a bit more than that.
Again, I can't use the app, so I don't know.
I'd have to check, but I'm pretty sure it's more than that.
Until the app comes to the UK, I'm stuck in web browsing mode.
Yeah.
Only because I know I can technically get an Apple. That's the thing. Like I was speaking to Pete recently, and I know he's got himself an American iTunes account to get the occasional film that's in 4K over there and not over here. But as weird as it sounds, I'm too baked into the system for it to be. It's easy enough to do, but I'm too in the Apple ecosystem for it to be easy.
Yeah.
Like, I rely too much on my UK Apple account running smoothly across the board.
You don't want to mess with it now.
To have a second account that I hop in and out of. Like, if it was a different device, I'd have no problem. Like, if it had an Android tablet, I'd happily set up an American Google account to do what I needed to do on it. But like, so much of my stuff relies on that smooth running. Like, I store a significant amount of stuff on the iCloud. Like, all my RPG PDFs and stuff that I've bought from various places are all stored on iCloud, because it's the easiest way for me to, wherever I am, if I want to look up a rule, if I want to do some prep, I've got access to that folder on my iPad, my phone, and my laptop.
I tend to use Google Drive for that.
Yeah, if I wasn't, I would be using Google Drive if I wasn't intensely baked into Apple products. Like when I had an Android phone but still a Mac and an iPad, I used OneDrive for it.
I've never got on with OneDrive.
OneDrive I like a lot.
It's always been clunky for me on the desktop. It's insisted on having like 3 different folders installed, all to different locations. It just makes syncing a pain. I've never used it
as anything but a web-based or an app-based product.
It was when syncing it to my desktop, it just caused nightmares, so I turned it off and stopped using it.
Yeah, I only really use OneDrive these days to log into Matt's OneDrive account to pass in the video files every time we finish recording one of the other shows. But my personal cloud-based storage is iCloud, just because, again, it's the easiest thing for me to use.
It's interesting. I use Google Drive for my own stuff, and if I'm sharing the odd thing with someone.
Yeah.
When I'm sending files that are one-use files to someone, that when I'm recording all my other stuff with Pete, for example, I record all my own audio. So it's nice high quality.
Yeah.
And then send it to him. I use WeTransfer because it's just a quick upload. They grab it and that's it. It deletes itself after a couple of weeks. I have to worry about it.
WeTransfer before.
It's very convenient.
Yeah. Like cloud storage, guys. This is what you came to a comic podcast.
Yeah, how have we gone to this?
It's fair, we've gone way off the track today. This episode will probably just be labelled James and Connor talk about stuff. It may be comics related.
There is some comics. I've been reading. Have you been reading any comics lately?
Yes. I've engaged my catch up on Star Wars because I've switched to monthly buying. I've added Star Wars into my actually buying it monthly. But I kind of jumped the gun and I haven't actually caught up yet. So I've been getting monthly issues and I thought, you know what, no, I need to catch up. So I read the first arc of Bounty Hunters on Unlimited, and
it's all right.
The only Bounty Hunters was a book I wasn't ever gonna read, but because of War of the Bounty Hunters, I thought, well, I guess I am. And I was actually pleasantly surprised.
It's not like the best. It's nothing special, but it's solid.
I liked that first story. I liked the kind of she betrayed us, and then the slow reveal of. And this is a recent enough comic that I'm not going to make any spoilers.
Whose name I'm completely forgetting?
Lash.
Yes.
Lash was the betrayer. The main character is
Valance.
Yeah, Valance, an old Marvel Comics character brought back into canon. Which is nice. 2 characters now, Valance and technically the Rabbit is now canon.
Is he canon? What was he
in? One of the he's in a couple of the IDW Adventures books. And
those aren't canon.
They are canon.
No, they're not.
I was under the impression that they are, but they're the ones that could most likely be forgotten.
Weirdly, they told us a long time ago those weren't actually canon.
Oh, so yeah, the Rabbit isn't canon then. That's the only place.
I think because all of the the kids stuff like that, they've kind of just gone, it's not really canon. It's just kind of content.
Fair enough.
Or at least it wasn't. Jacksaw, that's his name.
Yes. What gets me is I saw someone talk about how someone was saying they were excited for an upcoming Star Wars show. Oh, High Republic. And then someone says, well, I would be excited by it, but it's probably just I'm enjoying the books and it's probably just going to overwrite all of that like Star Wars stuff does now. And it's like, it's happened twice and it's barely overwritten anything. Ahsoka,
so the 2 moments
alters the Ahsoka novel slightly, but not significantly enough to make any real difference.
Yeah, and then they redid a scene in Bad Batch from the
which again
Kanan comic.
Not enough to alter any character beats. It's just a slight change in circumstance.
Yeah.
And these are myths and stories.
Yeah, and Disney have been putting out Star Wars comics for 6 years now?
Yeah, eventually you're going to reach a point where something doesn't line up. It's the nature of a beast of shared storytelling. If you're going to insist things are canon, stuff eventually is not exactly going to match.
I wonder if we're kind of a bit more flexible on this as comics readers. We're used to things just changing at the drop of a hat.
Sometimes, especially, and not just comics readers. Both me and you are massive DC fans, right?
Yeah, they're pretty
canon
bad
for us is I guess it exists.
Yeah.
The thing,
Until told otherwise, it's like it wasn't that long ago. I'm talking like start of Rebirth, which I guess is a little bit long ago now, but we didn't know. Actually, not even start of Rebirth. It was like 2 years into Rebirth.
yeah.
We didn't know if Doomsday killing Superman and Death of Superman happening at all was canon in history.
In
at
theory,
the
it
point of the
happened
universe.
to Clark, but it might not have happened in the universe.
Yeah, it was with because technically our Clark was at that point from the old world and was brought here, but it was like, did it happen to this Clark that happened? The New 52 Clark? It was very vague.
It never happened to the New 52 Clark.
Well, here's the thing. Then you had the whatever story arc did this.
Well, then
it had
New 52 Clark was never Clark. That's for.
Well, yeah, but this is the thing. Then you had the Mixie story.
Yeah.
A couple of years into Rebirth, Superman. I want to say it was called Reborn.
It wasn't even a couple of years. It's like a year.
It was only a year.
They really got it. I think they decided they needed to
clear this up.
Yeah, so they did a story to tie it all back together.
So officially, there was no other Clark. This was never a Clark from another world. There was only ever one Clark. There was shenanigans.
An argument could be made that if we consider that there is a period of time. When was Rebirth?
2016.
When was Convergence?
I want to say 14.
So,
because after Convergence finished, you had DCU for about a year,
an argument
and then you had
could be made that 2011 to 2014, there is no Clark Kent book being published.
Yeah,
because as things are revealed, the New 52 Superman was, what was he again?
Oh. Nonsense.
A shadow, or like a
split image or something like that from the real. I don't know.
Yeah, DC, man.
Yeah.
What I love about DC and why canon is ridiculous in the notion of DC is that it is still all canon. Like, I like that DC has basically gone, you know what, we do reset, but the resets happen in universe. Like,
yeah, and then you've got things that aren't canon but might be at some point, like we were talking about earlier with Knight and Squire, that Batman the Detective.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's called, the Tom Taylor one at the moment. I would say that's probably not canon until someone decides that we're continuing this Knight and Squire, and then it's canon. Which is what happened with Killing Joke, right? You know, that's the big example. Like, Killing Joke was not canon. It was an out of continuity, just here's a graphic novel story.
Yeah.
And then other writers went, well, hold on a second, and ran with it, and now it's canon. Like, that's how a lot of DC continuity works. It's just things just get slotted in.
It's why DC's whole thing works, I think, better than Marvel's canon does. Because Marvel does take the approach of, oh no, this is all one story from the start to the end, so everything has to have... DC doesn't need the sliding time scale in the same way that Marvel needs it, that Iron Man has to go from Nam to Afghanistan, to like Gulf War, to Afghanistan, to Gulf War, to...
Yeah, and at what point was Captain America defrosted from World War II now?
Yeah. And how far in the past does, like, eventually, it's not that long where we're going to be at a point where Captain America comes from 100 years ago, not 20 years ago, not 40 years ago, but 100 years ago.
Yeah.
As long as you keep World War II as Captain America's origin.
Which, up to this point, they've been pretty consistent with.
It's one real world war. And it's the problem of setting your world in the real world.
Yeah.
Because Marvel is
there's
in
nothing
the real
to say
world.
That there is nothing to say that Captain America's story, the broad strokes of it, could not be transplanted into Vietnam War, say.
Yeah.
Not really.
It can't be.
Why?
Because to function, Captain America needs something that we at least, as a culture, view as a clean, clear-cut, good versus evil situation. You can't transplant Captain America...
No, you're right.
...into any post-World War II American war, because America isn't intrinsically for good guys in those situations.
Unless you're an American.
Unless you're American. But
no,
even
but you're
then,
right.
it's
Whereas,
not the...
whereas you know, because they've done it with Punisher,
And
where
why
they've
World War II,
changed
like any
Punisher's
wars,
war
yeah,
repeatedly,
and that can be
it's
done
fine.
because of who Punisher is.
Yeah, but you're
And
right. That point of Steve Rogers
saying
being
that
the
World War
good
II
guy.
was a case of good versus evil is a obscene simplification of anything. But at least pop culturally, that war
There
is
was good
seen
guys and there
as...
was bad
Yeah.
guys. Whereas, I mean, World War One, for example, mess, just a mess.
I mean, I think an argument made that turning Nazis into pop culture villains, which they have been for decades, partly leads to how easy it is for them to come back.
Because they're kind of seen as a joke, almost.
Or the fact that, like, oh no, they can't be Nazis. Nazis are these guys. No, that's Indiana Jones. That's not real life. Like, that's Captain America. That's not.
Yeah. No, you're pretty right.
But yeah, I don't see a war that you could transplant Cap into and have him still be Marvel
unequivocally
Superman.
The good guy.
Yeah. I think I actually had I was having a conversation with I thought the MCU, right, might succeed at legacy in a way that Marvel has generally failed.
Because they have to.
Because they have to. Because they have two options. Legacy becomes a main part of the MCU, or they recast.
That's the two options. It's legacy, or they go the James Bond route.
Yes.
And given that we have not heard any
down the line,
I can.
But I think
it'll be more of a. I think it'll be a case of like. Do we care about spoilers for Marvel films at this point? Spoilers for all the ones that are out.
I mean, they've been out long enough that it's fine.
Yeah. When they want to bring Iron Man back from the dead, they can recast and use that. In 10 years' time.
Yeah.
We want an Iron Man reboot. Don't know. I suspect they'll have like Riri before that, and they'll have actual legacy.
Well, we know they're doing. We know Ironheart is in production as well as Armor Wars.
Yeah, but at some point they will want Tony Stark back. They will want Iron Man back.
Yeah.
It will not be Robert Downey Jr.
That's the thing. Like, just maybe Legacy will prove successful enough in the MCU that they don't need or want the originals back. It is possible. In regards to MCU, I think you might dig Loki. I don't think you will, because I don't think you can pluck up the energy. If you could pluck up the energy to care, I think Loki is your jam.
I've seen like mixed things where some people are like, yeah, it's cookie cutter TV. And I'm like, okay, I'll pass. But then I've seen other people say it's Marvel's take on Doctor Who.
It's high budget American Doctor Who so far.
I suspect it would be the one I would enjoy the most.
It's out of the three so far, as much as I love WandaVision, this is the one I'm enjoying the most.
I think I might just leave it. Even though I was here's the thing. I still kind of want to watch Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Because you got Steinfeld in there.
None of this stuff is going anywhere.
No, it's all there.
If you decide in a year's time, you know what, I do fancy watching Loki. It's there.
Exactly. But here's the thing. I suspect I might actually want to watch Hawkeye as it comes out.
Loki,
I don't want to make myself feel sick of Marvel content before that comes.
Loki also is the one that apparently they're developing a season 2 for.
Interesting.
And I wonder if it's because, Loki is essentially dead in the film franchise at this point, so he doesn't have to be anywhere else.
It's the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. route with Coulson.
Yeah, he doesn't have to be anywhere else, so we can. And it's not Loki, as in, because that is the interesting thing, is that this is 2012 Loki.
Oh, so it's Avengers Loki.
Yeah.
Give or take.
You never watched Endgame, did you?
I did.
Oh, you did in the end.
I watched it at some point. That's the last one. I kind of just stuck it on in the background and got bored.
Yeah, it's that Loki that vanishes with the Tesseract.
Oh, okay, from that timeline.
Yeah, and he's a variant, so the time agency basically captures him and goes like, "No, you shouldn't exist." Now, whether the Time Masters are like, and that's things like, oh, but the Time Masters, like, why do you trust? Like, I find discourse around these things interesting because at times it's like, guys, you've watched television before, right? Like, you understand how story works, right? Like,
and that is like to a point. Some of the complaints is it's very just standard TV writing.
It's good standard TV. Thing is, I noticed Pete was having a grumble about it on Twitter yesterday for being standard, and I just think Pete doesn't like TV. Like, sometimes when I like, it is TV writing, but again, I think Falcon Winter Soldier was TV writing. I think Mandalorian is TV writing. I think WandaVision was TV writing, but I'm okay with my television feeling like television. I much prefer my television to feel like television, and we've had this conversation before, right? But I much prefer my television to feel like television than film. I have film to feel like film.
I have a weird like relationship with this in that I want it to feel like television. I do. I like TV, but also there's a lot of like network TV that just feels bland that I'll sometimes watch the first episode of. And no, but even things that like recently Pete was quite into. It was a pilot for a show. What was it? I don't remember what it was now. It was
it
a
that new, not X-Files style show?
Probably. Definitely not Fringe is the one I'm thinking of it as.
Yeah.
Debris, that was it. Where I watched the first episode and I was like, no, I'm not feeling this. You know, I thought it was really cliche. I thought the characters were really kind of bland. And Pete was like, no, it's great. You just don't like network TV anymore. And maybe I don't. Maybe that's true.
But then you're also binging the hell out of Riverdale.
Yeah.
Like, so that can't necessarily inherently be true. Like,
I think I'm bored of a lot of the genre network TV stuff. Like, because obviously you've got your classics to your X-Files, your Buffy, where it's like, okay, I don't know, I could watch them now because they're kind of too bare bones. You know, they set the template, don't get me wrong, and they are pioneering for what they were, but things moved on. But then there's a middle period where you've got things like, you know, Fringe and Chuck, stuff like that, where it's a bit more inventive with what it's doing. Where it's like, oh, okay, this is quite good. And then now I feel like it hasn't really progressed that much. I'm just like, I watched that first episode of Debris and went, sure, it's Fringe / X-Files. It's just another one.
Part of the problem is like with network television is that there's nothing there anymore because it's not where the industry is.
It is, and I think part of that is all the best creatives are offered more lucrative deals at streaming services or cable now, and they moved there and put out better quality. Not necessarily better quality, but they put out higher budget quality with the same writing teams.
The Disney shows so far, be they Marvel or Star Wars, and maybe it's the weekly format, but they're definitely television. But I think it's a nice return from limited series that are basically 2 long films back to more traditional television without going all the way back to network television. They actually remind me a lot more of, as weird as British television,
where you have your 6-episode seasons, and it's just like here's 6 episodes that we made once every 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, they and again, maybe Loki feeling a bit like Doctor Who is part of the reason I'm thinking that. But for better or worse, like Captain America: Winter Soldier feels like an MCU BBC spy thriller. Like,
I get that. I think that's something that's very interesting about British TV in that we don't operate on a strict schedule, which don't remember the last few years have only just started to move away from this. But network TV traditionally, September through May, that's your season. Here's 20 episodes, give or take. This is what you get every year.
And that's the format I would like. Like, I just watched All a New Girl.
Mm-hmm.
And I could do a whole episode of something on why I think sitcoms are potentially man's best art form. at least for emulating life.
Sure.
And I get to the end of those 7 seasons of New Girl, and it hurts to get to the. And I think all good sitcoms, if you kind of do this, good TV less so, because I think in anything that sitcoms have a whole lot of will they, won't they, things like that, but they don't necessarily have as heightened of a sense of drama as drama. Like
it can feel a lot more casual, like you're.
Yeah.
I think it's you get to know characters. It feels like you're hanging out with friends every week.
You get attached to sitcom characters strongly than like no one's watching Arrow and getting all that attached to Oliver Queen. Like
no, whereas you're not watching New Girl and worrying that Jess might die this week.
No, but by the end of those 7 seasons, and it's finished, it's like, oh, I feel like I've just lost some friends I've just spent the past.
That's pretty why a lot of people rewatch sitcoms a lot.
Yeah.
Because they are probably the most rewatched thing.
Because a sitcom, obviously, anyone at home wondering, sitcom stands for situational comedy. And most people would I don't know. Maybe people know that, maybe people don't. I remember Dawn French once referred to it as the sitting comedy. Because people sit a lot. Which, is true.
It's hard to argue with that.
But, because you're fundamentally just experience sitcoms, obviously there's a lot of comedy, but you're fundamentally just experience people live their lives.
Yes.
Because there isn't, the high stakes are the same kind of high stakes that we tend to have in, our actual life. Will I get this job?
Did you upset your boss?
Yeah. It's the same stakes we're used to living with. So you're almost a viewer into the lives of these people.
It's significantly more relatable.
It's why I love slice of life comics as well, I think. To bring us back slightly on topic.
No, I get where you're coming from. You kind of appreciate it more. Like I say, it's more relatable. You understand it. It hits on a slightly deeper level.
But I've still never watched a comedy I did very much enjoy. I've got a feeling it's probably aged poorly, but I did watch How I Met Your Mother a lot, regularly.
Loved it.
As it was
I'd stand by. It's one of my top 3 sitcoms.
I think the way it plays with memory and time is genius, but I have the ending spoiled for me. So I always getting towards the end of a sitcom, I always get a little touchy anyway, because I'm like, oh no, I haven't got much time left with these people.
Yeah.
And then I had the ending spoiled, and I was like, that's not an ending I even really wanted for these people, so I just kind of...
I get where you come from. I think the ending is the worst part of that show.
Yeah.
I don't despise it as much as some people. It didn't ruin the whole show for me, because I still loved so many other episodes.
Like the birthday goat. The way it kept cropping up every year because he couldn't quite remember which birthday.
Yeah, the pineapple.
And it has... And I don't think the show elevated on it as well as it could have, but it has one of my favourite moments of friendship in that show as well, because I think platonic friendships are just as interesting to mine for relationships as a romantic relationships are. Yeah. And it's the moment where Lily runs away in the early seasons.
End of season 1.
Yeah, and it gets all Marshall's obviously rightfully annoyed, and it's all this moment of Marshall and Lily making up, but Ted's still a bit pissy with her. And she's like, what's your problem? And he's like, you abandoned me as well. We've been friends since...
Like a decade at this point.
Yeah, you left Marshall, but you left me too. And it was and again, that's something they're the moments you get in if we talk we look back in Shakespeare, right, and think of how Shakespeare echoed Man, I think if someone was looking back on art
to understand life,
sitcoms are much more likely going to show that off than...
I get what you're looking at. When we look back at, if we're trying to understand life for an average Roman by looking at their art, the mosaics or this and that, the archaeology of it all. and trying to understand what was life like for at least the last 40, 50 years, this period of time, you could look at the sitcom as being very reflective of society. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Even the shift in shows in demographics that appear in sitcoms, and it's one thing I think New Girl's got going for it, right? It's a much more diverse casting than, say, Friends.
Yes.
I used to think How I Met Your Mother was potentially more than Friends, but now I've been inclined to say it's potentially New Girl.
I think the reason especially in the UK, we think of How I Met Your Mother as modern Friends
is because it was shown on
E4 not just shown on E4, which was the home of Friends at the time. They marked it as Friends. I remember distinctly when How I Met Your Mother was about to launch. They were like, you know, they would literally show adverts for it with, like, you know, Ted as Ross or whatever. You know, they would literally just compare them to Friends characters, like straight up, like in the, you know, like they'd show clips of a Friends thing and then show a clip of something from the first few episodes of How I Met Your Mother, and be like, "This is Friends. You all like Friends because, you know, we know how much you watch it. So come and watch this one." I don't know if it's actually true in the comedy of it.
Yeah, it's not.
But
it's
I think
also more blatant.
We were conditioned.
I think again, people look back because I think there's enough time now from now to How I Met Your Mother to evaluate it on a whole and to find certain elements of it aged or problematic or things like that. But the interesting thing with like it's sort of like Ted isn't that great of a guy. It's like, no, he's not. But I don't think the show actually pretends he is.
Never does.
Like, the show is very...
Like, very often his friends are going, Ted, really? Come on.
Yeah, like... It's about his flaws as much as anything else, right? Like...
I do love that show. I don't know. It probably has problems, ending included, but the way, like I say, it plays with time and memory, the pineapple, the goat, the 3 days of snow episode is utterly wonderful. If you're not familiar, there's a big 3-day blizzard snowstorm.
Yeah, and
it's telling these stories that are all intercutting. And it's not until the end where it's like, oh, these were 3 separate days. There were 3 separate occasions that this all is, that the 3 different plot lines are taking place on. Even though for most of the episode, it seems like they're all taking place simultaneously. And it's absolutely wonderful. So I know, obviously, they're bringing the show back. They are doing a reboot/sequel.
How I Met Your Father?
I think that's what they're calling it. Yeah. It's starring Hilary Duff, I believe.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, like it is going ahead. This is happening.
Watching through New Girl in a relatively quick succession. It's probably taken me a month to watch for 7 seasons. I'm actually think sitcoms are easy watches.
Yeah,
but there's some great character development over those 7 seasons. Have you seen all of New Girl?
I've seen about 4 seasons.
So, interestingly, I think it got brought back for season 7 after it got... And season 7 is a short 8-episode season that jumps ahead 3 years. So you kind of get to see them in their slightly more settled down...
Kind of what Parks and Rec did as well.
Lives.
Which I don't think did it as well.
New Girl does it very well. New Girl is a nice, perfect... Because you could have ended it where season 6 ended. And it's like, okay, people are happy people are together... over, but
Parks and Rec was like, it leaned into the futuristic angle a little bit too much. I know Parks and Rec is always a bit heightened, but I think it overdid it a bit for me at the end.
Season 7 of New Girl was just a sweet 8-episode coda on everything. Like, you got to see they're happy ever after.
Again, you know, talking about this is such a big difference between American and British TV, because it's why I will probably say I prefer like the American version of The Office compared to the UK one, because I love the UK Office. I think it's fantastically funny.
I'm not a Gervais fan in general.
That's fair. That's comedy is very subjective. It's taste. I think it's fantastically funny. I love watching it. I don't give a shit about any of the characters.
No.
And I think that's true for most sitcoms, because again, this is a case of here's 6 episodes.
I think there's great British sitcoms, but I think American sitcoms and British sitcoms, while both fundamentally comedy, are operating on different And part of it, I think, is that 22 episode network.
Yeah.
Television. Part of it is you're right. In fact, that I think British American sitcoms are more character driven.
Mm-hmm. Even British sitcoms, I would say, are heavy on their characters and have some development.
They're also more British sitcoms are more situation, capital S, as in
here is a scenario that we are going to throw them into.
A couple of recent British sitcoms I absolutely adore, but again, certainly not character driven. Ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's character driven. In fact, that it's full of characters, but it's not. But Ghosts is absolutely brilliant. 2 seasons so far. If you've got iPlayer and it's on there, watch it. It's great. Ghosts is fantastic. A couple inherit a house. The lady knocks herself on the head, sees all the ghosts that live there. It's got the whole history crew behind it.
Yeah.
And then Upstart Crow.
The Mitchell one.
Yes, and it out Blackadder's Blackadder.
Which shockingly is something I was never that big into. Which I feel like it ticks all my boxes, and I should love Blackadder, but it just doesn't work for me.
Shakespeare, I would definitely give Upstart Crow a watch.
Yeah.
It's David Mitchell on fine form. It's who wrote Blackadder and then obviously now Upstart Crow. Ben Elton.
Yeah.
It's Ben Elton on fine form. It's got the rest of the cast are very good. It plays up Shakespeare well while loving Shakespeare. Like you can tell, and how it plays with like that conspiracy theory that Shakespeare didn't like Shakespeare, and how it ends on like, of course he fucking did, you idiots. Like,
yeah.
I read an interesting point recently how Shakespeare conspiracy theorists is basically classism. It stems from basically just going like, no, of course this guy who wasn't part of a gentry, he couldn't have possibly have wrote these great plays. It had to be Marlowe off as a spy in the world, and like Marlowe's his best mate in Upstart Crow, and
nice.
And there's a bit where Marlowe has to fake his death, where they play with the idea that Marlowe was writing.
Oh, okay.
In Shakespeare,
I would probably enjoy this.
Yeah, it's very funny, and then occasionally they'll put a very, very obvious but fun kind of stamp against modern life, where Shakespeare will go on some rant about something like.
Does he drop into a soliloquy?
Yeah, but about like public transport or.
Okay,
and it's all very much pointed at like now, but
I think as well like American sitcoms are very character driven, very reflective of American society. We'll classify that. I think British comedies are more damning on British society. Like they tend to be a bit more satirical. Like obviously, like even something like The Inbetweeners.
Yeah,
it's very reflective of that kind of teenage British life, but it's always through this lens of kind of a bit shit, isn't it?
Well,
there's this cynicism to it all.
I'm working on an RPG setting at the moment. The anti-Harry Potter.
What's the anti-Harry Potter?
I was like, you know what? Why the hell are magic schools that are in Britain always posh, always public kind of, and in England, if anyone confused, public means private for schools.
Yeah. Don't question it. We're stupid at that.
Yeah, like what about the state comprehensive magic schools? What would they be like? In-betweeners, but with wands. Broom wankers, if you would. Like, what does that look like? And I thought, like, you know what? I'm gonna build it as an RPG setting.
The Flu Network wankers.
Like, what does a magic school that's gonna be much more akin to what most British teenagers live through?
Oh, that would be a fantastic thing.
Look like.
I'd love to see that. Yeah,
it's gonna be my hope is if I manage to successfully create it, and I've got plenty of ideas for it. It's going to be in a world where it's actually going to be set in the area I went to high school in, which would be the early noughties.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that when all of man was worried about the Millennium Bug, on the stroke of midnight 2000, the Fae returned to the world and brought magic with them.
Oh, nice.
And it's going to be like that, an early noughties Britain, where like, oh god, we've got to deal with magic existing, so schools start teaching magic, and
that's nice.
And
I do quite like well, but I love the idea of it still being hidden, like Harry Potter-esque, but you've got all like the chavs there as well.
Yeah, and it's going to be like, set in an old mining town,
obviously,
that has a woods outside, which is where like potentially, because obviously when creating a RPG setting, you've got to have adventure sites.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a woods where the Fae, where barriers fit enough for
definitely not Forbidden Forest.
Fae to hang around. The mine is going to be effectively a dungeon under the town, where again the borders between reality are thin, and there's potentially a new element that the mining town can kick up into. And my idea is that the people who live in this town are just so like, like Deirdre, did you see it? The pixies were ruining my plants again last night, and just like all this like.
That's nice, dear.
If I get it all working properly, it will be the second season of Dice Fools.
Nice. No, that sounds like a great idea.
Create the PDF of a setting as a setting neutral setting, so people could take the location and use it in a D&D game if you want to do a very custom version of D&D or other games out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a hint at what's potentially to come on the channel, guys. If on our now and a half long episode about really nothing, but I've kept recording, which I'm learning.
Which makes a change because I every single episode, bar probably none, maybe one, of this show, we have gone for another hour afterwards on this sort of stuff, and not once has it been recorded.
Nope. So you're getting a taste this week of what happens when we hit cut.
Pretty much. We just kind of
we stopped talking about we haven't been talking about comics for at least 40 minutes at this stage. We
spoke about Marvel a little bit.
Yeah, true. We did go into MCU and the television, and
we did.
That span us off into sitcoms. I mean, we have a whole episode of sitcoms on the channel, so you've got a second.
I like how we spoke all about sitcoms there, and we didn't actually go back to WandaVision.
Yeah, WandaVision does. WandaVision plays with a notion of sitcom very well.
Yeah, and the idea of provided the looking at how sitcoms have changed, how they have changed to reflect American life.
And to be fair, why Wanda has created a sitcom world for herself, because she experienced what we talked about, right?
Sitcoms are safe.
Feeling at home with these characters. TV. And I was actually going to finalise, like, one of the things I loved about New Girl most was, before I went on my tangent about magic schools, was, let's say, how it has got a really good arc for the characters. Like Schmidt. Yeah. Schmidt is an absolute...
Starts off as just an annoying
Yeah, I mean, they have a douchebag jar for him.
Yeah.
And through... Like, it's that instant of Jess moving into the loft. Like, it sends all these people's lives on a slightly different trajectory than they would have been on, in the fact that... Because Jess's friend gets involved with them and becomes part of a group. And later on, they pair her up with Winston a lot. And her and Winston get a lot of B or C stories. And it is a stroke of genius because their chemistry together is brilliant.
And presumably Schmidt feels a bit left out.
No. It just effectively becomes that. Obviously, Jess and Cece are best friends, but it effectively settles into that Winston and Cece are the other, like...
Oh,
if it's Nick and Schmidt as kind of a pair, you've got Winston and Cece as well.
Yeah.
And that they get up to shenanigans together, and they call it their classic mess arounds. It's a Winston Cece mess around. And everyone else always looks at that with like a, what?
No, you're right with the character arcs. Because like last episode kind of undoing a bunch of stuff aside. How I Met Your Mother with like Barney, for example.
Yeah.
It changes a lot.
Like,
it's a weird thing where they were beholden to their format, where because they had all the stuff with the kids that they needed to film while they were still younger and kids, it kind of undid a lot of growth because, well, we can't change this ending now with this idea that they'd had 7 years ago.
With like the for Schmidt arc and the fact that he goes from being this dick who you occasionally see like, oh wait, no, he's actually a really sweet guy. He just buries it deep down out of insecurity and all these things, and how these new friendships pull it out of him to the point where when we're leaving him, he is just a great father. Like, he quits his job because he realised that Cece's making a lot of money at her job, and he's like, I'd rather just stay at home with my kid.
Yeah.
Like, I'm much more fulfilled doing this than I was working in an advertising office. Even like there's definitely a tonal shift in the show around after season 4, after Nick and Jess at season 4 when Nick and Jess break up after they've been together for a season. There's like this shift in tone, and I think after watching it all, I realised what the shift in tone is. It goes from being a will they, won't they, to these people are clearly destined for each other.
Yeah.
But how are we going to watch them grow enough as people to be able to come back? Rather than it being, say, if you're comparing it to Friends, it becomes a constant. You never feel like Ross and Rachel are destined for each other. It's always just a will they, won't they.
They're only destined for it because there was fan demand for it.
Yeah.
Where not because of the characters actually.
She's his lobster.
Yeah, exactly.
But in retrospect, we always Ross is just a
boring kind of bland person that's kind of not that great.
He's just not a good person.
Yeah.
Like, Ross is probably always in the wrong in that.
That's kind of like why I like things like Always Sunny so much, where no, they're all terrible, but the show is not hiding. Like, there's never any pretense that these are remotely half decent people. These are all the worst of humanity.
It's the problem with, like, if I ever meet anyone who idolizes characters from Always Sunny or idolizes Rick from Rick and Morty, there's always
you have missed the point.
You get what you're watching, right?
It's like the people who I'd like Fight Club and Joker, to be more recent. It's like, did you watch the movie?
I watched.
Do you understand the movie?
Speaking of Joker, I watched Cruella the other night. I made my return to the cinema.
Is it actually female
for Cruella.
Joker, or is it just?
It is Disney. I think it's better than Joker.
It's a pretty low bar.
I really don't like Joker as a film, but the thing is, I think this film justifies Cruella as a hero better than Joker justifies Joker as a protagonist. In the fact that they're both doing like, oh, this is a villain who we're going to turn into a anti-hero.
Yeah.
But I think the creative team behind, I think making a fun pop heist film works more than trying to make Taxi Driver with a Joker. Like,
that makes sense, because that's the thing. It's not that Joker's a bad film. It's not that it doesn't work.
I just don't.
It's just that. It's just that. Why would I not just watch Taxi Driver?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't do anything to iterate on Taxi. It's just Taxi Driver with Joker. There is nothing more to it than that.
While Cruella and Cruella does have that problem of like, wait a minute, because you kind of want to see more Cruella, right? You end the Cruella film wanting more of what this is, and then you're left with him like, oh, but she's about to become a puppy murderer. Like,
I heard the twist.
It's not even the twist that happens in the first 5 minutes.
Okay, I won't spoil it anyway. But I heard
it's been out
what
long
it was.
We're an hour and a half deep into. Anyone who's watching us for comics has tuned out by now. Spoilers for Cruella. Cruella's mom is murdered by Dalmatians. The parents of Pongo and the other one.
Oh, well, what they're called?
Because the after credit scene is her delivering, because Cruella gets the Dalmatians that killed her mom. They become her Dalmatians. Because
this movie.
It's a punky heisty crime movie, I mean, I'll be honest, it's Emma Stone in punk fashion, kind of being badass. I was never going to be a hard sell on it.
No, you weren't.
Like, I imagine Matt would watch this movie and probably enjoy it a fair amount as well for the same reason. Like,
Pete would hate it.
Oh, Pete would absolutely despise this film. That said, out of the Disney live-action remakes, I'd argue it's one of the few that has a true identity of its own.
Probably because it's not really a remake.
No. And I realised, like, 101 Dalmatians, right, out of all the wells Disney could have returned to the most.
Weird choice.
Yeah, because, 2 live-action films, cartoon, straight-to-DVD cartoon, a couple of TV series, and now Cruella. Like, I think it is the property they've done the most with.
Is it maybe Lion King?
No, I'd say more
You've had
than
a few
King.
like animated shows. You've had the movies.
Lion King's had 2 animated series at this point, a trilogy of direct-to-DVD. No, for film and then 2 direct-to-DVD ones and a live-action one. It still feels fundamentally like, if you take it that the live-action remake is very recent for that, like,
yes.
101 Dalmatians just feels like the thing, but they've never adapted a sequel. And have you ever heard what the sequel to 101 Dalmatians is about?
I never watched it.
No, it's as in the book, as in the sequel to the book.
Oh,
Disney have never touched the book.
Oh, okay.
It's...
Because they did make an animated sequel, right?
Yeah, it's just its own like sequel. They've
like
never touched
102 Dalmatians.
They've never touched the book because it is insane.
Oh, okay.
Okay. The dogs wake up, and all the humans have gone to sleep and won't wake up. So some of the dogs go to London, and it turns out one of the Dalmatians is now the Prime Minister's dog. And now, because the humans are asleep, is now Prime Minister, and all the cabinet's dogs have formed the cabinet.
I love this. This is the Cats issue of Sandman.
Yes. So
to bring us back to comics, just before we
they decide that clearly Cruella must have done this to people. So the dog parliament decides it has to kill Cruella. And apparently goes to try and do that, but then they realise, oh no, it's an alien dog that's put humans to sleep because it wants to invite the humans to come and the dogs to come in because it's lonely, come and join it.
How have they never adapted this?
And it says that, oh, humans are going to destroy the earth, come and hang out with us. But the dog said, no, we like our people. So the lonely dog guard goes, fair enough, I'll be lonely, but if you love your people... Oh,
I want like
dogs,
Winston Churchill Dalmatian.
The dogs can fly while this is all happening as well. Part of the humans going to sleep gave the dogs flying powers.
That makes
sense. And I've not read this
book.
book, I'll be honest, I've only ever read the synopsis, so I'm just badly explaining a synopsis that was probably described to me for comic effect. But, like, it just sounds
bizarre.
Yeah. It's Cats. You say it's Cat Salmon. It sounds as nuts as, the musical Cats.
Which is about suicidal cats.
Yeah.
I did not realise that movie / musical is about cats wanting to be the one to be sacrificed to be reborn, to be the super cat.
I'm still not entirely sure that is what I read it as, but
it's definitely what they're thinking about.
There's a fear that it's potentially cat heaven, that the cats have already died and they're in cat heaven or cat purgatory.
Sure, if we're getting metaphorical, I'm just talking about the literal plot of what they are singing about.
Yes, and I remember, have you ever heard a quote like where Andrew Lloyd Webber's writing partner was like, so what's it about? And goes into all this deep, meaningful stuff, and Andrew Lloyd Webber's just like, it's about cats. It's just like, oh man. But yeah, we're so far off track here. We're going to end, I think, on that little discussion about Cats and 101 Dalmatians.
Please don't watch Cats.
Watch Cats.
If you watch Cats, be very drunk. That's the only way I can endorse it.
I saw it sober in the cinema.
Yeah, well, you're a nut job.
And I go and see anything in the cinema because, I've got a limitless pass. There's no reason
and
for
you're
me
a nut
not
job.
To... Oh. I mean, Cats is terrible.
You brought my point.
It was entertaining in the fact that it's just a series of and sorry, if you ever want a filmmaker who lacks style, to make you think, like, how is this guy doing Cats? What's his name? Is it Tom Hooper?
Tom Hooper.
Tom Hooper, yeah. I mean, and I say he lacks style. He doesn't. He has a very clear directorial style, which is a total lack of style.
Very clean.
Very weird wide shots as well, which worked for, say, A King's Speech. But when you get into things like Les Mis, are just like, this does. And
needs
I love
more
Les
flair
Mis,
to
but
it.
like that's another musical I do very much enjoy.
I've never seen it. I want to read the book though. Sounds kind of up my alley.
I love a musical because I love relationships like Javert and Valjean have. I like that Javert's just like, no, you stole a loaf of bread, you will suffer for eternity. And Valjean's just like, just let me live my life, man. I escaped. It's fine. I'm doing good in
French
the world.
for you.
And it's like every time we meet up, it's like this intense battle of wits. And obviously, as you get through it, and it's worth noting, like, people say, oh yeah, Les Mis is about the French Revolution. It's not. It's one of the latter revolutions that failed miserably. It's like the students' revolt that happened after the French Revolution. Yes. It's about a completely pointless, failed
It happened
revolution.
about 2 years later.
Yeah, like the fact that so many people die in this is a pure kind of...
It's kind of... the actual book, though, is one of our rare first-hand accounts, though, of this, because the author was there.
Yeah.
Like the ending of that book where it describes what's going on is a first-hand recollection. It's a primary source, weirdly.
It's... And obviously, musicals heighten the drama in everything. Like, there's times where, like, Marius is all like, I don't know what to do. Do I go and fight in this and entirely waste of time, or do I go be with this person I met? It's like, go and be with the person you met, Marius. It's not that hard.
Yeah, but musicals, man.
And like towards the end, after they're escaping the barricades, and Valjean's trying to get Marius out, and Javert catches up with him because Javert has infiltrated the barricades, pretending to also be a rebellious person, as they want to do. And Javert gets the big, moody, powerful, kind of deep songs about justice. And
the big ballad.
He has a big song early on about how justice has to be as fixed as the stars. He's a bad guy because, stealing a loaf of bread is not a crime that should be all that punishable if it's like... Yeah, it should... Even if it's not to feed your starving family, a loaf of bread shouldn't net you that much.
It's a slap on the wrist. At worst.
But, so he has this big ballad about how the stars are immutable, as is Javert, justice is forever, and he'll get Valjean. And obviously Valjean has him at his mercy, and he's like, no, I'm not going to kill you. Why would I kill you? That's a bad thing to do. I'm not a bad guy. I'm not going to kill you, Javert. And Javert's like, what, you're not going to kill me, but you're a criminal? And it's like, no, I'm not going to kill you. So Javert lets Valjean escape because he's so shocked at the fact that this bread thief didn't murder him in cold blood. And I love how this episode is basically just turned into me poorly describing musicals now. This is
Yeah. Off the beaten tracks for this one.
Yeah. And then Javert gets this really second powerful solo about how, well, I made that speech earlier about how Justice and Javert are immutable. And this guy's pretty decent, so I can't arrest him. Which means I have to die now.
So that's the only
because if I'm alive, I've got to try and arrest him because, the stars.
Them's the rules.
Yeah, so I'm just going to step off this aqueduct. Bye. That's like Javert's end. It's just like... But I love it. I love it.
That's the French for you.
Yeah, it is very French. But yeah, on today's episode of Comics Unmasked and...
other things.
Yeah. Maybe this week's episode will just be called Unmasked.
Comics Unmasked, question mark?
Yeah. But hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed my rendition of Les Miserables for you there.
Yes. Thankfully no singing attempts.
No. I do know a lot of the songs, kind of. Mainly
Have
because
some restraint.
Had to edit a student production of a 3-night student production of Les Mis once.
I know that feeling. I know all the High School Musical songs because I had to play them in an orchestra once.
Just burn it into my brain. Like, I know that musical back to front. But yeah,
I couldn't tell you a single song name. I could sing every single one of those songs.
Yeah,
I hate it. They will never leave me.
But yeah, this has been a long episode. See, maybe we need Andrew to keep us in check. Maybe Andrew in his hard is generally need to finish at a certain time because he has work the next day, and works at normal times. Keeps us on.
Go do that.
keeps us on track. Without it, it's chaos. So yeah, Comics Unmasked needs Andrew. And on that note, we shall see you soon.